right, and we're officially off to the races with our webinar focusing on formulating a successful business pitch that shows the value of your business. The main purpose and goal of this webinar is not to necessarily just show you how to be a better salesperson or how to be a slick used car salesperson, but more or less to how do you engage into the environment which you're approaching into with the best formula that works for your purpose and intent of the conversation. So before we lean too much into the content, I'd like to introduce the panelists and the speakers for this presentation. My name is Don Raleigh. I've been on the team here for Evolve Systems for just across my 9-year anniversary. My title is the Revenue Operations or RevOps Manager for short, and I lead the operations for all the sales team efforts. So if there's an engagement in which we are presenting a webinar such as this, going out into the field and identifying target people that we'd like to engage in conversations with, as well as partnership resource management. I've been loving the ability to not just display my talents and gifts of being able to be a part of a team that produces results for our clients, but also to be a part of the team that truly is passionate about what they do. It's been a joy to be able to work with some very talented individuals, such as Shannon Turner, which I'd love it for you to introduce yourself at this time.
Thank you, Don. Thank you. Hello, everyone. I am Shannon Turner. I am the partnership strategist here at Evolve Systems, which means that I kind of work in tandem with Don. Once he's really qualified somebody as the perfect partner for us, he then connects them to me and some of our lead experts so that we can get down to what are their true goals and what ways we can really help them to come up with a strategy that really feels aligned from both sides. My background, well, I've been at Evolve for about 2.5 years. And prior to that, I was a graphic designer, really focused on branding, websites, and creative campaigns. So that's kind of the lens that I bring to this. Don really has that sales seat covered, and then I have a little bit of that creative side. So we're coming together today to talk to you about elevator pitches.
That's right. We make a great team. Before we dive too much into the content, as a friendly reminder, we will have a Q&A session at the end of this presentation. You're more than welcome to have your camera on or off during this. And if you have any questions, feel free to type it in the chat as well. We'll do our best to address them, but save your questions if you have them for near the end. We're looking forward to getting started. So as a brief agenda of what we're going to be actually talking about today is that we're going to be introducing what exactly is an elevator pitch. What does it mean to be, what does it mean to have an elevator conversation to talk about what is it that your brand and what is it that you're actually trying to do? And it's not just for salespeople, once again. How does it work in cohesion with your brand representation? And how can you make sure that what you're saying versus how you're being perceived is in total unison with each other? How do we captivate the audience to actually remember what your pitch is? And what does it actually mean to craft the actual pitch so that they are able to engage with you, not just in that one conversation, but the follow-up that happens therein. We'll also be talking about what are some of the easier ways to get started on crafting the pitch and expanding upon it, and some of the key takeaways and next steps of how you can not just take this information, but you can really run with it post this presentation. And once again, we'll be having the Q&A after this. So let's lean in. What exactly is an elevator pitch? And let's get down to the basics. Let's boil it down and identify what are some of the actual true concepts in which we're getting at. Let's say you're walking into an elevator, and just at that moment, your ideal target audience is walking in. They select the next floor, giving you only a few moments to capture their attention, communicate who you are, and share how you can add value, not to just them, but to the company or service in which they represent. Then you try to convince them to connect with you, not just take your business card, but truly build a bond. So ask the question, what's your pitch? Now, the biggest question that people ask is, why does all this elevator pitch stuff matter? I mean, it's at the end of the day, it's just being a slick person with a couple key catchphrases, right? Well, truly, if we want to be able to maximize the results in which we're engaging with our contacts in those engagements, we want to really make sure that we're able to articulate the value in which your business or your idea is able to bring to the table. It's not just about the individual, because we're trying to get outside of just having a really great sales team, but more or less of having a true brand that represents what your company is able to do. So thinking about not just the elevator, but what does it mean to walk into an event like a procurement fair, going to networking events? these proposal presentations. Potentially you're looking for investors to invest into your business, or even talking about what does it mean to have an internal onboarding schedule and talking with internal teams as well as the interview process. The elevator pitch is not just for the elevator. It's how you represent yourself in all of your actions. One of the best ways to do that is by having something called brand cohesion. And Shannon's going to be talking a little bit about what does it actually mean to have a brand and a tone of voice that represents not just the story of your company or yourself, but digs deep into who you are and why you are. Shannon, you want to take over from here?
Thanks, Don. So when you're talking about an elevator pitch, it may sound really easy, like, okay, I'm just going to talk about here's my company, here's what I do, here's why I do it, done deal. But it really goes beyond that. And so it's important to start by looking at your brand as a whole, really across the board. And a lot of people think about branding as your visual pieces. It does include your brand identity, your logo, your colors, your fonts, all of that, but it goes much deeper. Your brand also outlines what your voice and tone is. And what that really means is what is the personality of your brand and how you communicate with your customers, as well as how you're perceived. So what you can see here on the right is something that we use a lot with our clients when we're exploring branding. It's called a tone chart, and it's one of the first exercises that we do to really hone in on who you are as a brand. And once you've determined this, it's going to help you craft your elevator pitch in a way that sounds exactly like your company and makes it really easy for anyone else in your company to talk about the business at the same level you would. So for example, on the right, you can see here that we have this chart where the second one on the left is modern and the second one on the right is classic. And so what we would do is go through individual exercises of your leadership team. How does each person think your company ranks on this chart? And then coming together and really having a conversation. So in thinking modern versus classic, you might think, well, we're classic because we've been around for 50 years and because this is a staple item that everyone needs. But you may have an argument from some of your other team members that you're modern because you're releasing new iterations, you rebranded next year, you're doing a lot of thought leadership. And so then the conversation becomes, where do we really fall on this line and how do we want to be perceived? So maybe with that conversation, we end up being in the third bucket here where we are classic. We did come from somewhere really solid, but these days we want to be perceived as modern. We're that new choice. We're up on what's going on in the world and we're going to help you kind of move into the future. So this can open up a lot of really healthy conversations that just make you look at your business a little bit differently. And it can be a great way to also see, you might think that you have a really solid idea of your brand, but your team members might come to the table with a completely different perception. And so that's where the work lies, to discuss this and really come to the conclusion about who are we actually, and then build upon that. Once you've kind of figured out your voice and tone, then you can go into your core services. Of course, you know what you do and what you offer, but how do you talk about these things in a way that does resonate with your clients? How do you make it tie back to your tone so that everything that you're releasing, whether it is having a conversation with someone, giving them an elevator pitch, writing copy on your website, or creating any marketing, everything that comes out is extremely consistent. You can almost recognize it by the way that you read the language, that this is your brand. And so that's where we start to build up the power of the brand. After going through your core services, you want to look at your key differentiators, which can be a little bit tough because oftentimes your competitors can brag about very similar things. And oftentimes everyone wants to go for customer service. We're different because our customer service is better. That's okay to use customer service, but I want to know why your customer service is better. So I really encourage people when coming up with their key differentiators to not just use common terminology of we're great at customer service, right? But what makes you great? Do you have stronger communication? Are you really involved? Are you extremely collaborative? Because some of these pieces are going to resonate with your customers a lot more than just saying we have great customer service, like they'll be hearing from everyone else. Your tone and everything can also help you have a differentiator. So if you are competing against someone who is really authoritative and professional, and you're more of like a modern, playful, bold brand, that already lets you set yourself apart from them. So some of your tone work can really play into those key differentiators. And then lastly is really thinking about, how do you want your clients to actually feel after engaging with you? It's not about what you're telling them, what you're offering them, any of that. It's about thinking, when they walk away from me, I want them to feel really confident, really engaged, really excited, anything like that. And then starting to tie that back into how you speak about all of these things. So you might come up with your first iteration of your elevator pitch and then go through some of these exercises and realize that there's some more personality that you can plug in, or some greater differentiators that you can highlight, that starts to set your elevator pitch apart from your competition and starts to really solidify your brand to be recognizable.
Absolutely. So let's say that you go through that brand exercise and you now have an idea of what type of tonality that you want to have. You kind of have a picture of how that works in cohesion with your branding, but past that, how do you actually captivate the audience by not just getting them to pay attention to you, but actually engaging with you as a source of authority or as a source of truth? Because at the end of the day, we are all human social beings and we crave that connection. I think that some of us have a more proclivity to being more on that extroverted side, like Shannon and I, but how can you thrive in this when you are in that introverted aspect? It's because of the confidence in which you have with the tonality of your voice that allows you to captivate your audience as truly that source of authority. Once you have that ability to get their attention, know that they are purposely seeking a purpose for listening to you. When you have the objective of your pitch, if you are going into a sales environment and you're trying to talk to a director of sales or a director of operations to provide your services to them as a company, list it out of why you're there. Why are you getting into their path and being a resource for them, not just a speed bump that they're going to mow you down with. Talk about what is the actual, think about what is the actual purpose of your engagement with them. Are you trying to align your value in having overall synergy with that business to provide a service, or are you trying to come in to elevate a process efficiency? List it out specifically, because the more that you can get involved in identifying how you solve that pain point, you're able to really make some positive actions happen. Think also, if you are going into an investor meeting where you are pitching your product to a group of investors, why would they be interested in the services or product in which you are able to provide versus the 30 other people that are presenting that day? Think about, what does it mean to captivate? What does it mean to be to show your values of who you are as an organization, not just the product itself, but the purpose behind the product. As you can tell, the elevator pitch is more than just the handshake. It's truly the connection and deeper purpose with each other. The next phase of, once that pitch is actually given, you must be able to prepare to answer those key questions. So what is it that your product actually does? What is the service in which it operates in? And how can you communicate the end result of what the successful engagement looks like? It's not just getting into the door, but truly being ready to embrace the opportunity to partner with that person. Once you answer those questions, how can you add that emotion and relevancy to whenever able? So how are you showing up for that person in that present moment and guiding them through the path of what it means to have that true successful partnership with yourself, and making it easy for them to say yes to the next step? Have you ever been told that I'm not sure what to do from here? You know, this was a great pitch, but what next? What else do you want from me? We as humans, we seek that leadership inherently in any of our communications. We receive that naturally from our nurture versus nature DNA structure of our parents telling us, you know, hey, I want you to do this. If you do X, you will get Y. The same thing happens when we're working with our business partners, is that we're all seeking that next step of that serotonin being released. But what does it mean to do good work? What does it mean to elevate into the next phase and have that true resource and partner? And they all want to be guided. Now, it's really important not to be manipulative and to be too robotic in this phase of the conversation, because we all know that person that gets a little bit into the shark mode, is what we call it here at Evolve Systems, is you get a little bit too forward. You get a little bit too aggressive, And sometimes salespeople specifically can kind of be more assuming than they are of nurturing for the conversation. So remind yourself of what is the intent and how can you solve the problem, not just get the result in what you're seeking. That's the key differentiator between a salesperson and a relationship manager. Thanks, Shannon. We'll go to the next slide. So once you actually have the attention of your audience, how do you actually craft what a perfect pitch would look like? Ideally, you want to share these basic concepts. Now, we thought about having the fun little meme of Indigo Montoya of, my name is Indigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare. Like that whole phrase, it's a phenomenal way of identifying who you are as a person. My name, what you do, and the relevancy to the situation in which you're engaged in. Identify the pain point. You killed my father. Communicate the experience and highlight the consequences of that engagement. Prepare to die, right? It's a perfect way of identifying what does that actually mean to have a good pitch. But how can this be translated into the business community? We're not making threats about our father's killers, but identify what does it mean to actually be there for that person. Hi, my name is Don. I work at Evolve Systems. I partner with middle market organizations to elevate their digital experiences. We've been in business for 20 years, and I'd love to have a conversation about how we can improve our partnership together. That's one of the basic core principles of following this basic flow chart of having a good elevator pitch. Because the biggest thing that people often forget is that simple call to action. What does it mean to continue the conversation? Because you only have attention for the individual for a few short moments. Past that, that's where the magic of the elevator pitch can come into play and really make a difference in your success rate when having conversations with your potential clients. Going to the next slide. So think about how you're actually giving the presentation. I love this quote from Christopher Latch, who is I would like to say a comedic commentator, but he's a social critic of how we operate in our societies a couple of generations ago. And the quote of "nothing succeeds like the appearance of success." Now, I'm not saying that appearance is everything, but victory goes to those who show up. And a lot of the time, we need to make sure that we're not just presenting through our tone, but how we ourselves are giving the physical presentation of what does it mean to be engaged. Our body language is a huge indicator of what it means to show that emotional connection. How many of you have received an email from a coworker and you were nearly offended because the passive aggressiveness of the email, only to pick up the phone and call them and say, "Oh, this was not passive aggressive whatsoever. Here's what I'm thinking." And all of a sudden that bridge of relationship is bonded and you understand where that individual is coming from. The same thing can be said about giving your pitch. How are you showing up for that presentation? What is going on in that physical moment, both in person and on camera? Are you ready with your business card or ready with that sales sheet to easily hand it over to them? Or are you pulling your business card out of your wallet or purse and it's crumpled and dirty and it has stains on it? The presentation in which you present yourself in truly does matter when you are showing up and dressing for success. When it comes to online types of presentations, you'll notice that my camera is a little bit higher, so I'm not looking down at the camera, and my hands are in visible sight. The background image that I have is of something that is really beautiful art. It's on brand for what we're able to do, and it's exactly what our branding is. And so whenever I'm on camera, I do my best to make sure that my background is on brand with the quality of services and the quality of conversation that I'm trying to have with my potential clients. You can learn more a little bit about this type of art from somebody actually on our webinar. That's Jennifer Ray Oakes. Thanks for being here, Jennifer. And thanks for providing some of the phenomenal art in our office. But that being said, being prepared for the expansion conversation is the next bullet point here. When you have that business card, when you give them that information, when you provide that sell sheet, when you give them the pitch deck, what are the action items that you're able to follow up from them? It is amazing how many times salespeople will go into a conversation and forget the name of the individual in which they're talking to because they forgot to listen if they were being relevant or not. Perfect practice makes perfect results. You can only get so far when talking to yourself in the mirror. However, what does it mean to actually remind yourself that you're talking to another individual on the other side of that conversation? Don't forget about the other party, because nobody wants to be left behind. Thank you, Shannon.
So let's lean into some examples of success so we can really start seeing this come to life. So I've picked a couple of brands here, a few really well-known brands, and then of course one that you're familiar with on this call today, which is Evolve Systems. So let's look at how some of these companies have talked about their brand, both in real life scenarios and on their websites, to help craft this elevator pitch. We will start off with Airbnb. Airbnb's elevator pitch. Most tourists booking online care about price, and hotels are one of the highest costs when traveling. On the other hand, platforms like Couchsurfing have proven that over 500,000 people are willing to lend their couches or spare bedrooms. We have crafted a platform that connects travelers with locals, letting them rent our rooms or even entire places. Travelers save money, and locals can monetize their empty rooms. We just take a 10% commission. So with this elevator pitch, we started right away by highlighting the problem. There is an issue here. Most people are facing a problem. And there is this other part of the problem where we have most people who are willing to offer the solution, but nothing that is connecting the dots. That is the purpose of the company. We saw these two dots and decided to connect them. And we are doing that to achieve this connection, letting people rent rooms and experience travel. We address the money conversation, letting them know we only take 10%. It's not something where you're going to be losing out by going through this. And it compels us to be interested. This shows it's a great idea. I would like to learn more. If I resonate with any one of these points of either being the traveler who has to pay for hotels or being someone who would like to make that extra money and has space available, I've already connected with what's being said here, and I am interested in having a conversation. Next, let's take a look at Tesla. So this one is a little bit different. It's not something that was in written format. This is actually a speech that Elon Musk gave in Beijing in 2014 while talking about Tesla. He said, what we are trying to do with Tesla is to change the world by bringing electric cars, sustainable transport to the world, and showing people that an electric car can be fun and sexy and fast and long range. But in order to be successful in that, we need people to take a chance on the company. We need people who are willing to be early adopters of new technology. So this one is extremely in line with the Tesla brand. They want to be forward thinking. They are looking for people to come alongside of them who have this vision of the future. We're not asking you just to come and buy a vehicle. We are asking you to invest in the initiative of what we are doing here, making this so much bigger than a product. We're not even talking about a car here in this paragraph. We're talking about being early adopters of new technology. We're talking about changing the world. This is something where I want to invest in it. They have compelled me to be interested. This is a movement, not a product. And that's something that's a way where you can maybe create your brand around something much bigger than just what you're doing. Because every business is created with the purpose of solving a problem. And so when you really lean into that, this is where this kind of magic comes to life. And this is also a great example of someone who has really worked on their voice and tone. So he's out here, he's just speaking. This isn't anything where he's necessarily gone through brand experts and made sure that he's aligned, but he's talking about all of the important things. They're using their mission statement, which is to change the world by bringing electric cars. And they're using some of those important key points too. We need people who are willing to be early adopters of the new technology. This is almost their call to action of saying, do you want to be that person? And so it starts to kind of have that CTA of its own with that call to action of being like, yes, I do want to be that person. How do I do it? I want to start the next phase of this conversation. So next, let's look at what we are doing with Evolve Systems, your favorite brand. So companies have often been burned by a lackluster marketing partner, tolerating poor communication, limited visibility, and results that don't amount to much. Evolve Systems helps mid-market B2B partners engage customers and clients rooted in cohesive, targeted, and measurable digital experiences that resonate. We bring passion, transparency, and true expertise to every collaboration. So we could be really flat and just say, we work with B2B mid-market doing branding, websites, and digital marketing. or we can add a little bit into it. We bring passion, transparency, and expertise to every collaboration. That's not what you've been experiencing with your previous partners. The problem that we're facing is that a lot of people are now looking at marketing as maybe a dirty word. You partnered with someone, you've been paying them for months, you have no idea what's going on. They're giving you metrics and you don't know what they mean or even if they're of value. And people are coming with a pain point of frustration. I never hear from them. I don't know what's going on. I don't trust marketing anymore. I've spent a lot of money for nothing. So we are talking about how we go against that. We are rooted in strategy. We look at cohesion. We want targeted and measurable digital experiences for you. And we're not just going to come to the table and be your order takers and deliver something. We're going to come with passion. We are going to come because we're excited about your business and we want to build with you. We're coming with transparency. We want you to know what's working and what doesn't, because that's how we're strategizing the next pieces of your plan. And through expertise in every collaboration, we collaborate with you. We do not just do work on your behalf. We make sure it actually aligns with what you're trying to achieve and is leaning into our expertise to leverage your business knowledge and goals. So this really starts to speak a lot more to how we operate and who we are instead of just what we do. So how do you apply this elevator pitch, right? If you've worked this all out and you figured out what your pitch is, now what do? We need the next steps. So first of all is to cater to each audience. Like Don said, sometimes you'll be talking to an investor, sometimes you'll be talking to a client. You may want to bring up some of the same key points, but you won't want to be giving them the same exact pitch because they don't care about the same problem resolutions. So that's where you want to start looking at, who are the different people that I talk to? What are their exact pain points? How am I catering to this specific person? So you should have an overarching elevator pitch, and then you should have some iterations that are really, really designed to address exactly the situation that you're walking into. Next is to expand it into a pitch deck. Your elevator pitch is your quick hit. I'm interacting with someone. Maybe I'm catching them on the way to their car and I just want to get in the door and say, hey, we should have a conversation. Can I get on your calendar? Can we schedule coffee? Something like that. Expanding into a pitch deck is the next level of that. So building on to this elevator pitch, you're able to then go into a lot more of what are those sales pieces? How do we talk about those differentiators? What does it really look like to work through your process? So it becomes that starting point. And if you have done that groundwork of kind of working through your tone and all of those core brand elements, this should be much easier. You know exactly how to speak to your people. You know exactly the points that you'd like to highlight. You know exactly the language you'd like to use. And your entire team knows exactly how to apply that exact same language. So even if you're not in the room, maybe you're the owner or the marketing manager, even if you're not in the room, you can have the confidence that your team is speaking about your company in the exact way that you want them to. Next is applying to website and content. The great thing about an elevator pitch is that it is a quick, concise delivery. And a lot of what we look at when we're landing on someone's website is when I land above the fold in this area that I can see without scrolling, am I in the right place? Is it telling me I'm in the right place? I've landed on the website I meant to. Is it telling me what exactly we're going to address here, the problem that we're going to solve? And is it going to talk about how you're actually going to help me? So kind of having a variation of your elevator pitch right away on your website is an excellent way to welcome people to it. It also kind of creates that cohesion between your first conversation you're having and then their first interaction with your company. Maybe if they've only learned about you from your elevator pitch, they go to the website to check about you. That's where you want to have kind of that continuity and that cohesion. So make sure that you're using some of the same language across the board with those pieces and everything starts to connect. That also becomes easier when you're working on a brand playbook. So this is something that we do for our clients. It's pictured here on the right. And I also have a link at the bottom of this slide deck so you can check it out if you want to. But really what this does is dive deeper into some of those core elements that we talked about. What exactly are your brand qualities, right? What do you want people to feel after they've left with you? What are your core values? These are the things that you're bringing to the table and everything. How do you actually speak to these pieces? What are the terms that you use and the terms that you don't? How do you address these specific issues? By having this booklet that really defines everything, it gives your team that perfect alignment piece so that if I'm a new team member, I can read through this guide and I know exactly what I'm doing with this company. I know it like it's my friend. And that works with partners as well. If you're going to work with a vendor, you can send them your brand standards as well as your brand playbook, and it's going to make whatever work they're doing on your behalf that much more powerful. This piece also comes in handy because once you've really defined how you talk about your brand and the way that you use it, if you're going to do something like AI generated content, you can help use these characteristics to say, write this sales pitch in a way that is transparent, intentional, and human, like we've said that Evolve Systems is. And it can help you just kind of hone in on what that is. Of course, you can also work with professionals who can work with your branding. We structure these guides for people all the time and help walk through some of those exercises. But these are things that you can really be thinking about at all times on your own and having conversations with in your business. Next is to actually pitch. Now you're going to those networking events, you're going to those trade shows, you're going to business meetings, even team meetings, so that you're starting to really make this elevator pitch kind of a reflex muscle where you're able to talk about this consistently, strongly. And the more that you say this, the more that your team and your customers will be able to repeat your business and start to bring in referrals for you. Also at these events, just make sure that you're kind of watching the response to things. Try a couple of different versions of your elevator pitch. See what really resonates best with your clients. See what works best at a trade show where you're maybe having a couple of people who are sort of walking by as you say hi, you give them your quick elevator pitch, versus people who might be stopping at the table where you're really going into what are those next points? What are the questions that all of these people are asking me that I need to prepare my team to be able to answer after their elevator pitch? And then just continuing to integrate, continuing to have these conversations, continuing to check alignment, and always making sure that everything really is unfolding in that cohesive way that speaks to your brand.
Fantastic. So what are some of the key takeaways that you can actually walk away from this presentation with? Everybody that was able to attend this webinar either in real time or at a future period should be able to walk away with 4 good ideas of what you can do from this presentation. So think about what does it actually mean to have the space now to take these tools and to actually plan your pitch. Your pitch needs to be not just targeted, but truly amplified to be in a place in which it is presented for. Think about the where, not just the who is involved in that presentation. How are you actually using the tools in which you are developing to place it into the metaphorical hands of the individual in which you're engaging with? How are you using it digitally? Are you in person? Are you over phone or are you over email? How are they engaging and actually using the tools in which you are putting together? Thinking about how to actually craft it, and by starting to put words to paper. Take out a pen, write down what you think about who you are and why you do it, and then use that tone chart to help narrow down how your brand can come to life that attracts your ideal contact. It's not just about your ideal client. It's about what does it mean to identify that individual person in which you would like to engage into a relationship with. Then, once you have that crafted message, refining it and learning how to put it into a more relevant and informed place to attract your intended audience. That way, you're not just focusing on one, but you then start leaning into the many. Once you are able to do many, you're able to then refine. It's this accordion effect that you have in sales of what does it mean to get super niche, find the target audience, and then find that client. Taking these key takeaways allows you to go through that breath exercise. And then once you have those contacts and the audience members, you're able to then expand it past just the pitch. Once you have it down, start leaning into other resources like your brand playbook, your sales materials, your websites, etc. And really lean into what Shannon was talking about with the different generative AI models of putting your brand playbook or putting your pitch into ChatGPT or Bard or Gemini and all these different platforms, and start thinking about what are some useful ways that I can really hone in on my language and ask ask the chatbot, who do you think my target audience is? And start having a dialogue with them, because I truly do think that you could find benefit in nailing down what the AI model thinks your target audience is. So lean into how that actually works. So what do we do from here? What are some of the next steps that we're able to take from our takeaways? Some of them are, you start by doing it. I mean, like what I said earlier, victory goes to those who show up, and you showed up today. But right now, what you're able to do is download our free tone chart, and we have on the next slide, we have a great QR code that you're able to follow. Reference the brand playbook for additional brand work to build upon your foundation and enter it into these different generative AI models, and ask your coworkers and feedback for what they think of your pitch. Your team is your best asset. Finding those trusted resources is a phenomenal way to continue to refine it. Talk with the individuals, do the work, and continue to test and refine. Every single one of the attendees who have registered for this webinar will be receiving an access to our recording as well as the slide deck. And if you want to pull out your phones, we have a really great QR code that will take you to download the tone chart, and you'll be able to download this right away. Actually, we have it all set up, thankfully, to start getting to work on refining your pitch. So with that being said, we're currently at 10:35 a.m. We're right in line with what we're hoping to get you out the door before 10:45, leaving about 10 minutes left for the Q&A session. We're now going to open up the floor to the Q&As. And once again, thank you everybody for your time and attention for this webinar. I hope that you're able to have some really great takeaways and learn something new. So with that being said, let's open up the floor. Does anybody have any questions?
Not a question, but I'm on the Tone Matters page, and I see a little paragraph of writing, but I don't see a way to download anything. I just see a little paragraph.
Oh, I believe it's on the right-hand side of the screen, Anna. If you fill out the contact form, the form will download. Or maybe you keep...
Okay. It's on the bottom. Okay.
There we go.
That says subscribe to our newsletter. Is that the same field as the newsletter? Okay.
Yeah, we can also in our follow-up email, we'll make sure to include direct links to everything. So we'll directly link that download so you can access your tone chart. We will link to a recording of this webinar as well as the slide deck. So if you'd like to share it with anyone on your team, you can do that. And then we'll also share the link to our website page on the brand playbook, which really just talks about the components that go into a brand playbook and really the areas that you should focus on. So all of these will be really useful tools for you.
And thanks for being here, Alana. It's always great to see you.
Thanks.
Are there any other questions from the audience?
And if you start working on your pitches and you have questions then, that's when they might come. Feel free to reach out. We're always happy to chat through what you're working on.
So Shannon, let's say that there's a situation where you go through the tone charts, you start figuring out your elevator pitch, and you're not quite sure if it truly is on brand or not. What does it mean to refine it? What are some really good ways to kind of test or check if your pitch is working? And how can you learn more about yourself by going through this?
Yeah. So first of all, if you have a trusted customer that you can work with, it would be really great to just talk about what is the current perception of your brand. If you pitch to them, do they feel like that's really in line with the experience that they've had and everything of that nature? And then I think also just having a lot of internal conversations about things, really discussing, what are the words that resonate with us? And then making sure that as you outline your core values and the emotions that you want everyone to feel, that you're pulling some of those words in. So as you saw in like our Evolve pitch, passion is actually one of our core values. And so I'd say that it's also a part of our culture. And when you work with Evolve, the team is so passionate. We get on a team, everyone is really excited. We have a lot of ideas. We care about your business like our own. And so that becomes such a characteristic that is so strong and so palpable when working with us, that it's a great word to start using in our pitches, because it does start to create that alignment and that expectation. When you work with us, you're going to work with people who are passionate. I can say that to you in the first sentence of us talking. And then if you do proceed to work with us, you'll say, I see it. I see the passion. I see the passion on their website. I see the passion on their social. I hear the passion in their voices. Yeah, it starts to become something that almost brings itself to life once you've done the groundwork of knowing really who you are.
Yeah, we got a great question from Jennifer. And thanks for answering that, Shannon. So asking the question, when crafting a story, when creating a pitch deck, how long should it be? I'm working on a pitch deck, assuming it will be 15 pages or so. That's a great question, Jennifer. Thanks for asking it. Where my mind goes to start answering that question comes into play of it only needs to be as long as you need it to be, and reminding yourself of the industry in which you're operating within. If you are a manufacturing company and you need to convince your intended audience about the qualifications in which you have, and you have your ISO numbers and you have all these different credentials that you need to kind of prove to show that you can do the work that you're doing, yeah, it's going to be a much longer document, and there needs to be that source of authority that comes into play. But just like the famous phrase of sometimes less is indeed more, if you are in that creative space, think about not necessarily just how long it is, but what is the message in which you are putting together to craft a document that convinces the audience of the quality of work that you're able to do. So it doesn't need to be a 15-page long document. It can be as simple as 5 pages. Who you are, what you do, why you do it, and why select yourself, and how to get in touch. Just like a website can be thousands of pages, or it can be a simple 5-page. We oftentimes tell our clients that reducing the amount of pages can sometimes be the best strategy, because we don't want to overwhelm our customer when engaging with our content. It's all about how do we get them the information that they're seeking, and going through that customer journey and the user experience of the medium in which they're engaging with you on. So it's not always about more is more, or more is better. Sometimes less is indeed more. It's all about getting to the point of conversion, not just shoving information down their throat. I hope that helps answer that question. Shannon, do you want to help hop on that?
Yeah, definitely. I would think that when you say crafting a story for your brand, I think that's something where you do a lot of kind of that groundwork thinking of what is our story, or maybe even what is a case study that really illustrates the way that we operate and the way that we help, because those will start making people kind of identify with what you're doing. So like Don said, your pitch can be really short, and also keeping kind of concise information per page so that it is almost telling a story in itself as you guide them through the information. But I think that as you can kind of weave in real world examples, especially if you can select things that really pertain to the person that you're talking to, where they can listen to a story of how you operate and what you do and see themselves in it and say, well, I want that for me. I want you to do that for me. That creates kind of that powerful bond of I want more and I want to continue.
Great question, Jennifer. Thanks for asking it. All right, Curtis, let's hear it.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now. Lay it on us, Curtis. What do you got for us?
I've got a question, and I've struggled with this one for a long time, and thank you for the invitation. Certainly spoken with many marketing people, and we rebranded the bank in September, and we have 5 bankers in the office, but each one of us has our own personal brand.
Mm-hmm.
How do you handle that within the organization at the same time? Because my elevator pitch is going to be so much different than anyone else in the bank.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you have a way of, I'm sorry, go ahead, Don.
We run into that often, Curtis. Every salesperson is converting, they are convincing, and they are getting new clients. But what does it mean? There's no one silver bullet or one single pitch that's going to be the best fit for every single individual client. But at the end of the day, are you hitting on why your customers are engaging with you? Think about using this pitch deck, or think about using this brand playbook, not just as a way of convincing team members to work with you, but a way of articulating the core values in a way that makes sense. Shannon, you want to hop on that?
Yeah, I think it's really important when you have something like that, it's okay that you have your different iterations, right? Because you might be dealing with different audiences and different consumer types. But I think it's important to have an overarching elevator pitch, because sometimes you just need to talk about the company as a whole, and it doesn't necessarily get down to that individual level. And so something like that might be, when you're at a networking event for the company or a trade show for the company, something where you really need to talk about all of you cohesively. I think it'd be really great if you got everyone in the same room and kind of talked about your individual elevator pitches and figure out where the alignment is. What is true across the board? What characteristics can you lean into? And it can help you even maybe elevate some of the less strong elevator pitches to really be in aligned with the strongest person's elevator pitch.
The other thing I would take in consideration for that specific situation, Curtis, is when you're talking with your sales team, ideally you all will either go into different industries or you're all targeting the same industry. But think about what is the title in which you are trying to attract. Think about the persona of the individual and how do you identify what are the pain points that that single individual is trying to solve. If it is a small business owner that has a coffee shop on Main Street, what are some of the pain points that they're going to be suffering from that your bank has the ability to solve? Likewise, if you're going into a manufacturing organization and your target audience is the VP of sales, because the VP of sales is responsible for driving revenue to the business, but they can't do that unless there is a new machine that's operating on their floor. How do you convince the salesperson to get it in front of the finance director to take out a loan to purchase that equipment? It's those types of conversations that when you're able to think strategically and have a third party come in and be a resource for that alignment, not always is the branding going to be that solvent agent to take care of that problem. At the end of the day, it takes the brass tacks to get down to it of what are the words that are going to be able to convince that individual to follow the process in which you are putting before them. Because sales is not just trying to convince and convert. It's about aligning the expectations of the values in which they're engaging with and following through on that promise, that brand promise that leads to them to alleviate the stress point. I hope that answers the question, Curtis. How's that landing with you?
It resonates for sure. I get it. It's interesting where we focus on the brand of the bank so much versus the brand of each individual and boosting them up to be more successful. Because we're the face of the bank. And we all understand that what the bank is working to do, but how do we deliver on that every time? And I'm going to deliver differently than somebody else.
That's where that brand cohesion really steps in, Curtis. I mean, that's the name of the game of how do you get people to buy into the brand and not feeling left behind in a rebrand. That's something that we run into often of people not necessarily believing in what does the brand or the rebrand mean for me. Because we can talk about the customer, but sometimes sales reps get forgotten about or not even asked about in the rebranding process because they're going to adjust. And what happens if you can't adjust? You're going to go find a brand that you do believe in. Because at the end of the day, in the services space, what's the difference between myself and another agency that's operating in this marketplace? At the end of the day, not a whole lot of difference. It's the process and the brand belief that we're able to deliver what we promise. And do you trust me to be able to deliver the result in what you're seeking? That's at the core of it. Do you believe in the brand, not just the salesperson? Mm-hmm. So I hear you there, Curtis. It's a challenging course that everybody has to navigate, especially with rebrands.
I would also explore kind of how you want to prioritize things. Are people coming to you because they recognize the brand, or are people coming to you because they appreciate the expertise of the person they'll be working with? And that can kind of help you figure out how you want to prioritize the way that you present that. Are you selling the person and your credibility is the fact that they work for this company? Are you selling the company and the credibility is the expertise of this person? So kind of switching how you look at that can maybe help you formulate.
Something else that comes to mind, Shannon, is let's say that you are going out and doing, Curtis, let's say that I'm a banker and I'm going out into the community and I'm smiling and dialing and making connections. But what does it mean for you to receive a lead that comes from the marketing of the bank in which you operate within? How do you interact with that lead when they come and say, I'm interested in working with your bank because of the things that I found on your website? Do you have the tools in order to communicate the same messaging that is on the website and in the branding to your own pitch. And I think that also might be an alignment conversation of how do you make sure that you know what the website is saying, so that you're not lying, cheating, or defrauding your customers when they're coming and having pre-set expectations on the products or services in which you provide.
That's that cohesive alignment. Are you who you say you are?
Mhm.
Am I experiencing what I expected to based on what I engaged with? Whether that was being pitched by an individual, looking at your website, coming from your social media, anything I've engaged with is going to give me an immediate judgment and an expectation about what's going to happen. And so you want to make sure that it's in full alignment. I got exactly what I wanted. You did exactly what I thought. This is exactly how I thought it'd be to work with you and why I chose you.
I hope that makes sense. And again, thanks for asking the question, Curtis, and thanks for using the word resonates as you saw that on our branding.
That's the goal.
Yeah, we always love when our clients say, we just want to evolve our company. It's like, you get it, nailed it. Awesome. Well, I want to be respectful of everyone's time. We said that we wanted to end before the 11 o'clock hour. I think we have room for one more question before we hop off today. Is there anybody that has one last comment or question?
If not, I do just want to reiterate, we have that download for the tone chart in here. That is a really great way to get started. Just print that off, use it on your own, or distribute it to your team. And just really, how easy is it for you to define who you are, or are there gray areas? That's an excellent starting point.
Excellent. Well, thank you all for your time, attention, and investment into this conversation. We look forward to inviting you to our next webinar, and make sure to look out for that download that's going to be coming into your inbox here shortly. Thank you all for the time. We really value the investment you've made into us.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks all.